The Russians storing weapons at the plant. Is the situation becoming so concerning that it could become another Chernobyl?
Well, we really hope not, but we saw that pattern of behavior of Russians when they occupied the Kiev Oblast in Chernobyl, where they tried to turn the state into the military base, and they also were shooting near the station without noticing that it's a very, very high security and high risk object. So they're shooting near the station, they're shooting at the Ukrainian cities across the river. And yes, we see that they're trying to store some of the equipment there. Again, for all of that, the only answer is they have to leave. Not to say that they have to leave from all the territory of Ukraine, because this aggression and them being on our sovereign land is a violation of pretty much every international law and human decency. But to be at the nuclear plant is another level of terrorism that Russia is actually doing, in addition to all the war crimes.
Let's take that a step further. Are the Russians weaponizing Ukraine's nuclear power plants?
Well, Russians are weaponizing everything. Look at what they're doing. Everything, they were weaponizing the migrants, they're weaponizing the grain when they try to create a food crisis, when they try to starve so many people, when they try to starve Ukrainians too. They're weaponizing pretty much everything they touch. And yes, right now, unless they leave right away, we can clearly say that they are using a nuclear station for their own purposes and trying to create a threat out of it.
Can the Turkish president bring this to a positive resolution with Russian President Vladimir Putin?
We don't know. Definitely the intent of President Putin and Russian Federation is to destroy Ukraine, and is ultimately to destroy democracies. So that's why they attacked in 2014. That's why they attacked us in 2022. And unless they're pushed and we together force them to take any right steps, I don't think there is an intent there to actually do something good. So everything from leaving the Kiev Oblast because our brave armed forces made them leave, or to allow the grain deal because there was such a strong response. In addition to the armed forces of Ukraine's strong demand from the international community, that's the only way how we can actually force Russia to adhere to at least some international principles. So again, we have to be very strong and united on demanding them to end this war, to get out from Ukrainian territory, and in particular get out from the nuclear power plant.
On a practical level, what can the Biden administration deliver to you right now that would make a significant difference in this conflict?
We're talking today when Biden administration announced yet another package of security assistance, so much needed security assistance and so much appreciated. $775 million worth of all the equipment and military support that we need. And this is what we need to continue and accelerate. We need more weapons, we need more support to Ukraine, and we need more sanctions to Russia. Nothing new. But we have to make wars, and we have to continue doing it until Russia changes its behavior. We have to make a case not only to defend Ukraine, but also to defend all of us who believe in peace and believe in democratic values.
Ambassador Markarova, thank you.
Thank you.
Sources tell CBS News former President Trump's legal team is working through how to handle surveillance footage of the FBI search captured by his cameras at Mar-a-Lago. This comes as a federal judge in Florida said part of the affidavit that supported the search warrant can be unsealed. I spoke with former senior Justice Department official Tom Dupree about what needs to be done in order for the document to be released to the public.
They have to look through the entire document, go over it with a fine-tooth comb, painstakingly, meticulously. It's literally on a word-by-word basis. I think Americans from all ideological sides want to understand what led the Justice Department to make this momentous, historic decision to go into Mar-a-Lago. People want to know.
The Department of Justice has until next week to provide a redacted version of the affidavit. A British man who was part of the notorious ISIS cell nicknamed the Beatles has been sentenced to life in prison. Al-Shafi al-Sheikh was found guilty in April for his role in the murders of 4 American hostages in Syria. Friday's sentencing comes on the 8th anniversary of the beheading of journalist James Foley. He was killed along with journalist Stephen Sotloff and aid workers Peter Kassig and Kayla Mueller. Kobe Bryant's widow testified in her lawsuit against the LA County today. She's suing over photos taken of the remains of her husband and their daughter after a helicopter crash in 2020. CBS's Jonathan Vigliotti has that story.
Vanessa Bryant entered the courthouse looking determined, testifying emotionally about grisly photos that were taken, then shared by first responders after the helicopter crash that killed her husband Kobe, daughter Gianna, and 7 others. Bryant says she felt blindsided, devastated, hurt, and betrayed.
It's been incredibly emotional. I mean, a lot of people crying because of how important her testimony was.
Just weeks after the crash, the LA County Sheriff admitted at least 8 deputies had shared graphic photos of the scene, and court documents claim the images appeared on at least 28 department devices. In the lawsuit, Bryant cites emotional distress and invasion of privacy. Attorneys for LA County argued that Bryant and other victims cannot be suffering distress from accident site photos that they have never seen and that were never publicly disseminated. Vanessa Bryant has rarely appeared in public since her husband's death. She spoke at his memorial.
We love you both and miss you forever and always. Mommy.
And last year, when Kobe Bryant was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Dear Kobe, thank you for being the best husband and father you could possibly be.
On the stand, Bryant said she has panic attacks and lives in constant fear that the images will appear online.
She was really able to kind of paint a picture for, I think, jurors and for everyone in the courtroom as to how all these events have changed her life.
And the lawsuit does not specify a dollar amount. That will be up to a jury to decide. Ultimately, a legal expert tells me this case is not about money. It's about accountability. Catherine?
Jonathan Vigliotti, thank you. Coming up after the break, Finland's prime minister is coming under fire over a video of her dancing at a party. We'll explain why some are criticizing the 36-year-old leader. Plus, former Vice President Mike Pence and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis are holding key events in election states to rally Republican support. We'll discuss the lead-up to the November midterms. You're streaming CBS News.
CBS News Sunday Morning with Jane Pauley on CBS.
Ready? A generation of kids opens up on CBS Reports.
I just want to be like a regular kid.
Their world, their struggles, their voices.
What if I was white? lot of people like to call names and make you feel ashamed for being proud of who you are.
Now streaming Gender.
I did not realize that you could change your gender.
Realizing how you feel.
You can be a boy, and sometimes you feel like a girl, sometimes you feel like both.
Redefining who you are.
Identify as trans.
Gender fluid.
Non-binary and queer.
Is the idea of gender a thing of the past?
And to be yourself, always, no matter what anyone says, I love you.
Are the kids all right? Gender. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
I'm Nora O'Donnell in our nation's capital. We're here at the White House with the President of the United States.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We've never done an interview like this before.
That's correct.
Tonight, a congressional investigation sparked by reporting from CBS News. What's your message to consumers?
They need help now. Tell them I feel it.
The CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell from Washington, D.C. on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
We will witness yet another moment in history.
Want to go someplace new? Yeah, you do.
See something new.
Learn something new.
Meet someone new. Nate B in the house.
There's always something new under the sun.
CBS Mornings, weekdays.
When weather is about to get extreme,
We're talking about hail. We're talking about tornadoes, damaging winds.
every second counts.
Let's now take a look at what that really means to you.
That's why CBS News and the Weather Channel have come together to bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real.
We can show you what it's going to look like when the storms come through.
You'll see what will happen, where it will happen, before it does. Feel the forecast on CBS News. Time to get prepared. People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
CBS News Sunday Morning with Jane Pauley on CBS.
We have an inspiring story that started with a strange act of kindness.
We found it.
You're kidding me! We share stories that lift you up and brighten your day.
The Uplift. Stream on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform, inspire, and brighten your day.
I've been waiting patiently for something like this.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream on the free CBS News app Tuesday mornings.
As we've been reporting here at CBS News, a judge ordered the Justice Department to file a redacted version of the affidavit used to search former President Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago. The Justice Department has until next Thursday. In a CBS News exclusive, we spoke with Texas Congressman Mike McCall. He is the top Republican on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. McCall is also a former federal prosecutor. We spoke about the war in Ukraine and the FBI search of Mar-a-Lago. So is the unsealing or partial unsealing of this affidavit an opportunity for the FBI and the Justice Department to make a clear case about the justification of the raid?
Precisely. And that's what I've been really saying all along. Are we just talking about a clerical error with the archivist? Or is it a violation of classified procedures, which the president has authorization to declassify? Or is it something more than that? And that's what I'm particularly interested in. As you know, sometimes these search warrants can be directed on various statutes, criminal, and sometimes they can also be a fishing expedition for something else, like, say, possibly January 6th.
From your experience working with law enforcement, was the FBI raid by the books?
Well, I think they conducted it by the books. I think there are many Americans who think this is a vindictive search done on the heels of all these other investigations that didn't stick during Trump's presidency. And now these out of office, they're still coming after him. And I think that's why, again, the American people are entitled to know what was the real basis behind this very extreme, very heavy-handed measure.
Pitch and I are reporting here at CBS News. The Trump team says there is security camera video of the FBI search, and there are internal discussions about how to handle it and whether it should be released. If that video is released, what do you think the impact is as a former federal prosecutor?
I think if the FBI somehow deviated from the scope of the search warrant. That is a big issue, as you know. And the surveillance cameras will be the best evidence of that.
On Ukraine, as the ranking member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, does the situation at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station in southeastern Ukraine appear to be the next Chernobyl?
It could be. And you know, the Russian Federation took over, you know, these nuclear sites, and now they're using them as sort of battle operations to store their weapon supply, their military, making them a target. And, you know, if God forbid something escalates and weapons go off in a nuclear facility, that radioactive plume would have serious, grave consequences, you know, including a potential trigger of Article 5 under NATO, which would, if the plume hits one of our NATO allied countries, you can see the impact that could have. So it's a very dangerous situation. I would hope that they would allow the IAEA inspector to go to that facility to inspect it to make sure there aren't any safety violations. But I got to be honest, I'm not saying when that's going to happen. And I can only imagine the safety violations already being taken place.
Has the Biden administration lived up to its commitments in Ukraine?
I think getting NATO solidified was very important. I will give them high marks for that. And also getting Finland and Sweden to join was very, very significant. I wish the weapons had been brought in before the invasion and not after. And I was telling the administration that well before, you know, the fall, you know, when this happened. But you know what's really interesting, Catherine, is that when did this deployment of troops really begin and when did it escalate? In Belarus, what we saw by satellite imagery was they had a normal deployment that would take place in March or April. Then around August, you would normally see a deployment back out of that region. But what happened was they stayed after Afghanistan. And then the increase in troop deployments began to start in September, going through the fall, and the final invasion taking place, you know, in February. So, you know, when people say, well, what's Afghanistan? Why is that important? I think because the president projected so much weakness in what happened that Putin saw this as the time. Not a question of if, but when to invade Ukraine. And now we're seeing the same scenario playing out with President Xi as he looks at Taiwan. And he's being equally as provocative against Taiwan. And you saw the Beijing Olympics where, you know, this unholy alliance was reached between Putin and Xi against the West and against NATO.
So to be clear, you're saying the ripple effect of the U.S. military withdrawal from Afghanistan and the optics impacted Putin's decision-making on Ukraine and President Xi's decision-making on Taiwan.
100%. I think a direct cause and effect. And that's not just my word. There are a lot of intelligence analysts that tell you that there was a cause and effect between the collapse and the really embarrassment of that situation and a really degrading us as a world power from our foreign adversaries' perspective. It emboldened them and empowered our foreign adversaries like Russia, China, Iran, by the way, who's now getting closer to the bomb, and Kim Jong-un as well. It had a direct cause and effect on that, and I think that's one of the biggest takeaways, in my view, from the collapse of Afghanistan.
GOP leaders and candidates rallied supporters across the country Friday. Former Vice President Mike Pence spoke in Iowa, while Florida Governor Ron DeSantis visited two states. He was in Pennsylvania to support Doug Mastriano, who's running for governor, and in Ohio, he rallied for Senate hopeful J.D. Vance. We're also learned that former President Donald Trump will hold a rally in Pennsylvania September 3rd. Kevin Sheridan joins us now with more. He's a Republican strategist and former RNC spokesman. Kevin, thanks for being with us. Has the FBI search of Trump's Mar-a-Lago home impacted Republicans in any of the recent polling?
Not significantly tied to the raid itself, I wouldn't think. It's mostly a sideshow to what's going on in individual Senate races, which are statewide races. They're very candidate driven and focused on that. I guess you could say that it will energize, especially the MAGA base of the Republican Party, even more but many of those candidates have already won their nominations, so I guess they don't really have much of an excuse not to come out in Pennsylvania or Georgia or even Ohio or Nevada. So, it may produce a talking point in some House races, for instance, where they can say, look at what the Justice Department is doing. The two standards of justice in this country are unacceptable. We're going to hold this administration accountable when we get in there. But in terms of this being directed just to Donald Trump and what he did or did not do with classified information or classified materials, that's a Donald Trump thing, and he's not on the ballot.
So this is kind of a side issue in many respects. Really, the core issues are what? The economy, inflation, people's savings.
Yeah, people are getting poorer every day. Inflation is hurting everybody. Energy it's a terrible situation. We've got all the energy in the world right here under our feet, and with nuclear capacity and more drilling, and we're just choosing not to do it. That should be a message that every Republican talks about: inflation, plus crime. Crime in our cities, crime in our suburbs is out of control. Democrats don't have a message for it. They seem to be doubling down. Their prosecutors will not prosecute crime. That's got to be a part of the Republican message as well. And getting control of the border and holding this administration accountable for its failures in Afghanistan and other places. They've got to bring accountability. They've got to bring a check to the system. So Republicans, the issue set is very set right now. Republicans know what they should be running on. They need to hone their messages. They need to get very tight with their messages, not get distracted, not do stupid things, not say dumb things. And directionally, all of the signs are pointing in favor of Republicans, but candidates have to execute, and they always do.
Well, you're talking about this core issue of discipline. So what are we seeing with some of what I'll call these celebrity Republican candidates like Dr. Oz and J.D. Vance? Are they delivering?
Well, to take Dr. Oz, that guy's been on TV for 20 years or more. He's a world-renowned heart surgeon. He teaches innovative heart surgery. He's a smart guy. He needs to hone his message though. He needs to really get tight with it. He needs to not make mistakes. He needs to put some of the focus back on his opponent, because his opponent is not who he claims to be. He dresses and looks like he's a working blue-collar working man, but he clearly isn't. I mean, he lived off of his family for his entire life. So, I think he's Harvard educated as well. So he's got to put some more focus back on him, put some lead on that target, and then he's got to actually deliver his message on inflation, the economy, crime, all of the things that we talked about. In terms of J.D. Vance, the polling is tighter there. Ohio is a more favorable state to Republicans. That's a +8 state. Donald Trump won it handily in 2016 and 2020. So you've got to think that J.D. Vance will close and will be very competitive. I think he will win that race. Dr. Oz has got to make up some ground between now and mid-September, and then close strong.
How significant is an endorsement from the Florida Governor Ron DeSantis?
Well, Ron DeSantis is the 800-pound gorilla in the Republican Party right now. Everybody wants to be associated with him. He's got a $100 million war chest. He's collecting money from literally every part of the Republican constituency, big donors, small donors. He's hitting all the right notes. Obviously, Donald Trump could be in his way to a nomination for president if he runs, but he is a very attractive candidate to go out on the stump. He has a very simple message on any given subject. He just speaks plainly and matter-of-factly. He doesn't take any guff from any reporters that try to pin him down. So he's very combative. It's what Republicans want to hear right now. Whether that plays on a national stage when he gets into an actual presidential race, we'll see. But he's got to win his governorship race first. But he's a very popular, surrogate that would do well in literally any race. You put him in any race in the country, any state in the country, we'd be happy to have him.
There's new reporting tonight that Mike Pence's lawyers are talking to the January 6th committee. If he does testify, is there fallout with the midterms?
Depends on what he says, I guess. But, he has made signals that he's willing to do that. He's also looking to run for president. And I'd be surprised in how he does it or what he says. Now, he's also very practiced at and he's very skillful in saying, not saying too much, but saying the right thing politically. So we'll see how he threads the needle. He's recently said some things about Donald Trump where he's been slightly more critical recently. His team certainly has been a little bit, but in the days after January 6th, he didn't go there. If he gets in front of that committee, I don't think Republicans are going to like seeing it because I don't think they agree with what the committee consists of or how they're operating. So it won't win him many points with Republicans. But if he's got some bombshell testimony that says that he knows that Donald Trump did something that we haven't yet heard about, let's see what he says. But right now, I don't think it means anything more than probably for his prospects for a Republican nomination.
Kevin Sheridan, thank you.
Thank you.
A federal judge has ruled a Florida law restricting conversations about race in schools and the workplace is unconstitutional. Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, you just heard about him, pushed the Stop Woke Act, which went into effect July 1st. It prohibits teachings and business practices that suggest a person is privileged based on their race, sex, or nationality. A judge ruled that the law violates the First Amendment and is too vague. The court also refused to issue a stay that would keep the law in effect during any appeal by the state. A federal judge has ordered Senator Lindsey Graham to appear before a special grand jury investigating election interference in Georgia. This came after lawyers for the South Carolina senator appealed an order for Graham to honor his subpoena from the grand jury. They're investigating whether then President Trump and others illegally tried to influence the 2020 election in Georgia. Senator Graham is expected to appear before the jury on Tuesday. Finland's prime minister is at the center of a new controversy after a video of her dancing with her friends at a private party went public. 36-year-old Sanna Marin says the video on screen right now was only meant to be seen by her friends. An opposition leader called her behavior unbecoming of a prime minister. Marin says she's got nothing to hide.
I'm an individual, a person, a real person also, even though I'm a prime minister. So I won't change the way I behave. Of course, I have to be careful what I say because it can be represented as the whole government.
When Marin took office in 2019, she was the world's youngest sitting national leader. Coming up after the break, wildfires are raging in Argentina while fire crews are having a tough time getting the flames under control. Plus, attorney Ty Cobb joins us to break down new developments in the Justice Department's investigation into his former client, Donald Trump. You're streaming CBS News.
CBS News Sunday Morning with Jane Pauley on CBS.
You ready? A generation of kids opens up on CBS Reports.
I just want to be like a regular kid.
Their world, their struggles, their voices. What if I was white?
A lot of people like to call names and make you feel ashamed for being proud of who you are.
Now streaming gender.
I did not realize that you could change your gender.
Realizing how you.
Sometimes you feel like a girl, sometimes you feel like.
Doesn't mean we can't do our jobs or do it properly because there is pressure. The people who live on this land are ardent.
Right now, with our ABC News exclusive. At 73, Prince Charles is still waiting for the job that is his birthright.
Do we want Charles? Do we want a monarchy?
I'm Keir Simmons, and we'll take on these questions and more in our new podcast, Born to Rule. Listen now.
The day's biggest political stories with trusted insight now and expert analysis now. A daily look at the politics behind the headlines. Meet the Press Now, streaming weekdays at 4 p.m. on NBC News Now.
Harry Styles!
Tonight, I interviewed Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg about the ongoing delays. He seemed to be pointing the finger at the airlines. They're pointing the finger back. Mr. Secretary, when is this going to get better?
To cover the news, you have to be in it. This is how so many towns and cities are protecting themselves. They're pushing the gates open.
Was there a school officer on campus? That's what we've been told. No, top story with Tom Ellis. Weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now. Howie Jackson Now. Weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now.
All right, we are back now with Top Stories Newsfeed. We begin with sentencing of the most notorious ISIS terrorist to stand trial in the U.S. A federal judge in Virginia sentencing El Shafi El Sheikh to life in prison for his role in the kidnapping and brutal execution of 4 American hostages. The British national, one of the 4 ISIS Beatles, known for their accents and especially cruel torture tactics. The family of journalist James Foley, one of the Americans killed, calling the sentence a bit of justice. Next to a wild scene in Los Angeles, take a look at this. The LAPD releasing surveillance video of what it calls a flash mob of looters. The group taking over a 7-Eleven, stealing snacks, cigarettes, lottery tickets, some of them jumping over the counter and throwing merchandise at employees, all of them getting away before cops showed up. Police now asking for the public's help to track down those suspects. A driver in Miami lucky to be alive after a scary train collision. Video posted to social media showing a train obliterating the vehicle, which was stuck at an intersection in North Miami. Witnesses say the driver of the car was able to get out moments before the crash. No one was hurt. Okay, and Brad Pitt and his Make It Right Foundation have reached a $20 million settlement with Hurricane Katrina victims over faulty homes they built 17 years ago. More than 100 homeowners now eligible to receive $25,000 for previous repairs made to their houses. The owners reporting mold, leak, and rot in their homes purchased after the devastating storm. Pitt was sued in 2018 for defective design, breach of contract, and even fraud. Now to an NBC exclusive. After a summer of airline meltdowns, the Transportation Department is warning airlines to improve their customer service policies, or the government will order changes to compensate passengers for delays or cancellations. Here's Tom Costello.
After receiving billions in taxpayer support during the pandemic, the nation's airlines are tonight under intense pressure. Improve their customer service, or the government could soon impose tough new passenger rights. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg.
So now you're kind of laying down the law for the airlines. They can either pony up on their own, or you're going to enforce this for them.
That's right. I'm giving them an opportunity right now. We can do more rulemakings and even more enforcement.
In a letter to airline CEOs, Buttigieg writes, the level of disruption Americans have experienced this summer is unacceptable. Since Memorial Day weekend, 23% of U.S. flights delayed an average of 52 minutes, 2.2% of flights canceled, most in June. Contributing factors, weather, and air traffic control problems. But the FAA insists airlines get most of the blame for booking passengers on flights they didn't have the pilots for. Now the DOT wants airlines to provide refunds if a domestic flight is changed or delayed more than 3 hours, hotel accommodations for overnight delays. And with confusing airline rules on refunds and voucher policies, the DOT will roll out a new website Labor Day weekend, posting each airline's policies.
We want to make sure very clearly spelled out so that passengers know what they're getting when they buy a ticket.
The airline industry insists carriers strive to provide the highest level of customer service and look forward to working with the DOT to continue providing transparency for the traveling public. With Labor Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas travel ahead, mounting pressure to avoid a summer repeat.
All right, Tom Costello joins us now from Washington. Tom, I want to pick up where you just left off there, the holidays and what's around the corner. What are your sources, and really what's your gut telling you about the holidays, what they will look like? I have to be honest, I flew a lot this summer for both work and vacation, and to be fair, at least in my experience flying multiple airlines, I noticed things seem to have improved at least a little bit. What can we expect heading into the holidays?
No, they have, and I've said this on the air many times. Since July 1st, when the airlines dramatically trimmed their schedules to align with their staffing capabilities, their number of pilots, things definitely improved.
You've heard the DOT secretary say the same thing. We are right now running at about 2.3% cancellation rate. That's a little higher than normal, but the concern is, okay, what happens if we go now into the fall and the winter and we go into these heavy travel periods? Might we get back into a problem like we saw in May and June? I don't think it's going to be as bad as May or June. They're adding more staff. They're trimming the schedules. But nonetheless, some of these structural problems still exist within the airlines.
Tom, while I have you, I do want to ask you, one thing I did notice when booking this travel, the prices in the beginning of summer were just out of control. Should flyers expect that going into the holidays?
So Labor Day tickets up 20% from just a few weeks ago. After Labor Day, this is the shoulder season. September, October are slow. This is why all the retirees travel in September and October. Rates are cheaper, but you might want to book your flight right now if you want to go for Thanksgiving or Christmas.
All right, Tom Costello for us. Tom, we thank you for those tips. You may have seen headlines today about a warning from Apple to update your devices. Well, the tech giant saying it fixed a weakness in its operating system that may have allowed hackers to get into your phone and control it through, quote, maliciously crafted web content. So how concerned should you be? CNBC technology correspondent Steve Kovac joins us now. So, Steve, there's a lot of chatter about this online. I know a lot of people are hyping this up. It is pretty confusing, and the headlines are kind of scary. Can you walk our viewers through what exactly is going on?
Yeah, sure thing. So this is actually pretty standard for Apple and basically every other smartphone maker to issue software updates with security patches for little holes or bugs that they find in their code. You see this all the time. It's not just on the iOS level. Even your apps, like your Facebook app, might update regularly to fix any kind of bug fixes. And that's what we're seeing here. This isn't a major zero-day, everyone panic nightmare scenario. In fact, if you look, these updates are issued several times a year, and just in the last summer alone, there have been at least a dozen or so just this summer. So this is a very common thing. Apple is constantly watching for vulnerabilities across its devices, and other manufacturers do the same. And as soon as they have a fix for it, they push it out.
I think people, the idea of someone controlling your iPhone, though, through some type of hacking scares people. How did this hack work?
Yeah, so in this case, it's through the web browser. So, for example, if you go to a kind of shady site, maybe it could inject some code onto your phone that could take over. The chances of a normal person doing that or falling for it are pretty low, but there are some things you can do to protect yourself for that. And for example, you can keep your phone up to date, and also just don't click on these sketchy links someone sends you.
Yeah, when you say sketchy websites, is it more of a phishing scam? Like you actually have to click on a link, or are there web pages that you should avoid? Obviously, web pages you'd avoid anyway, but it's not happening if you're logging on to Amazon.com or NewYorkTimes.com, something like that.
Exactly, or NBC.com, right? We're totally clean there. But it's usually like you've probably gotten text messages like this before you say, oh, your Amazon package is delivered, and you get a link with a string of letters and numbers. Those are the kind of links you don't want to click on. You don't know where it's taking you. You don't know what kind of information it's gathering. Make sure if you get an email or a text message, it's coming from someone either you know, or double check that sender that it's an official source, like a big company that you might actually trust, and not some kind of phishing scam. That's a good way to protect yourself. On top of just keeping your phone up to date, which you can do automatically in settings, it will automatically patch these software bugs.
So the email I just got from Steve Kovac at gmail.com that said I won the lottery. Don't click on that link.
Whatever you do, do not click on that link, and keep your phone up to date, and you'll be just fine.
All right, Steve Kovac from CNBC. Love having you on, man. We thank you. When we come back and update
Which YouTube and StreamYard Direct,
the church official just arrested at his home. International groups calling on the Pope to get involved. Stay with us.
Welcome back to today.
Oh,
We have
is
a
it?
lot to celebrate on this Wednesday morning.
Cool.
It's good to have you along with us.
Well, I might be one of them. I don't know.
But when he does, you take it.
Yeah, I'm not in the chat.
Our show is about sparking conversations around today's biggest issues. The Fed raises interest rates. That controls inflation. Explain how that works. Is part of this?
Yep, I just put that on. Are you on Discord still?
Relationship to their employers. Could you just remind us why?
So I went back and I dug through all my paperwork and all my files for the last almost 20 fucking years of doing this shit that I do.
My job
Almost 20
is
years.
to think about what you tell me.
And
now tonight,
I found like that document that Project Veritas said leaked, and they broke it and they put it out to everybody. I had that 2 years ago.
And now you can
listen to it as a
That's the
podcast.
exact same document. That specific print that they came across and was given to them. I had that last year. But I have the one before it, and I have the one before that.
We are watching dangers he just read recession. I mean, is that where we're headed? Is
Oh, yeah.
to avoid that?
Yeah, they're advertising they're hiring, and they're hiring. You have to go through the law enforcement academy, carry a gun. Yeah, they got to carry a gun. Yep. They're not getting a lot of hits on it either. They want to hire 87,000 fucking people, but the kind of people they want to go out and be IRS auditors aren't really the kind of people that like to carry guns. So they're not getting any. They're not getting a lot of people applying for the job. I think they're a little over 1,000 people applied.
Politics behind the headlines. Meet the rest now. Streaming weekdays at 4 p.m. on NBC News Now.
No stress, no mess, just
They've
yawn.
cut all the standards back on everything, including the military. You don't have to have a diploma or GED to join the military now. They've raised it to $115,000 bonus to join the Army right now. Or the Navy. Army's still at $50,000. But the Navy's $115,000. It's you and me that's watching right now. Because I have another computer that's watching it, so I can go in and check it and keep an eye on my chat so that I can communicate with people.
My job is to think about what you tell me.
Now
All right,
tonight,
I'll be here.
Joshua Johnson.
Bye.
Weeknights at 8 on NBC News Now.
And what do you love about fatherhood?
The chaos, the learning. Is climate change one of your top priorities?
What's your message to girls who want to make a difference in their own communities?
Believe in yourself.
These days, it feels like the news never stops. So let's get into it. What's happening right now, what it all means for you for an hour every day. It can be hard to keep up, so let's get started together.
Allie Jackson Now. Weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now.
Live from Ukraine, from Mayfield, Kentucky, from Waukesha, Wisconsin. To cover the news, you have to be in it. This is how so many towns and cities are protecting themselves. You can actually see they're pushing the gates open.
I also want to get home.
You'll get home. You'll get home. Do you remember any tornado as bad as this one? You look at this and you're thinking, we're not going to have power for weeks, if not months. Exactly. Every night, it's your news playlist.
Top Story with John Yamas. Weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now.
All right, we're back now with Top Stories Global Watch and an update on a story we brought you last night, the violent crackdown on Catholics in Nicaragua. And tonight, the arrest of a highly influential church official. Nicaraguan authorities storming the home of Catholic Bishop Rolando Alvarez in Matagalpa. Alvarez has spoken out against Nicaragua's President Daniel Ortega. It is still unclear what charges he's facing. And the shocking admission from the Mexican government today about a years-old crime. Mexican authorities saying the 2014 disappearance of 43 students in Iguala was a, quote, state crime. The country's human rights chief outlining the government's involvement in the cover-up and confirming it's likely all the students are dead. And the World Rally Championship race car driver surviving a terrifying crash in Belgium. New video showing the leader in this race here flipping his car several times before coming to a stop. He and his co-pilot climbing out of the wreck through the front windshield. Neither of the drivers were hurt in the crash. That's good news. All right, when we come back, everything you need to know to get your binge watching started this weekend. The highly anticipated Game of Thrones spinoff. Can it live up to the hype? Plus, the newest series in the Marvel Universe and the first album from a fan favorite band in more than 3 years. Stay with us.
Harry Styles!
This is a critical choke point with his fire. And good evening from New Orleans, late military operation witnessing a massive crowd at Leonard Depot. Basically, spent some time. Any moment now.
News is happening now. Look at what's making headlines around the world. Whenever it happens, wherever you are, it's here now.
At 73, Prince Charles is still waiting for the job that is his birthright.
Do we want Charles? Do we want a monarchy?
I'm Keir Simmons, and we'll take on these questions and more in our new podcast, Born to Rule. Listen now.
Right now on NBC News Now, look at what's making headlines around the world.
We've got 3 new developments just this afternoon.
We begin this hour with breaking news.
This is what it looks and feels like to try to escape Ukraine.
I don't want us to say goodbye.
This factory has gone from making kitchen pots to lethal items.
There's an intense artillery battle underway.
Breaking news this morning.
The heartbreak, the grief, and the tears that we have seen here are all tragically familiar. Was there a school officer on campus? Because that's what we've been told.
No.
The shooting is once again reigniting the debate over gun laws.
If it's Tuesday, it is primary night.
The highest profile races yet this year.
The official confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Let's zoom out a bit to our changing climate. What do we think that the new normal is going to be?
The rollout of COVID vaccines for children under 5.
Inflation is cutting into almost everything. Another honest conversation about what it means to be Asian American. We're coming on the air with the news NBC Scoop.
Bringing the news to you is not only a job, it's an honor.
Tonight, I interviewed Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg about the ongoing delays. You seem to be pointing the finger at the airlines. They're pointing the finger back. Mr. Secretary, when is this going to get better?
It's the best time of the morning, time for the pop duck, baby.
Oh, feeling the vibe today on the show. Top Story with Tom Yamas. Weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now.
Our show is about sparking conversations around today's biggest issues. The Fed raises interest rates. That controls inflation. Explain how that works. Is part of this that everyone's rethinking their jobs, their relationship to their employers?
Could you just remind us why there are 9 justices on the Supreme Court instead of 3 or 20 or 2?
It's not my job to tell you what to think. My job is to think about what you tell me.
Now tonight with Joshua Johnson, streaming weeknights at 8 on NBC News Now.
Back now with Binge-Worthy, our look at the best things to watch and listen to this weekend. And joining us on one of our Hall of Famers, entertainment journalist, Brian Balthazar.
Whoa!
Brian,
I mean, can I ask for a better intro than that?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
It's going to be tough today because I have nothing to watch. I think a lot of people already burned out. I'm watching reruns of Arrested Development. I have nothing to watch.
I'm here for you.
Okay, so let's start with a big one.
Yeah.
A huge one. Huge. Prequel. Game of Thrones.
That's right.
Dragons.
House of the Dragon.
HBO Max. Hold on. Right. Let's watch the clip.
Let's do it.
I consider the matter urgent. That of your succession. Who else would have a claim? The firstborn child. Rhaenyra. No queen has ever sat the Iron Throne. The king has an heir, Daemon Targaryen. I will not be made to choose between my brother and my daughter.
Game of Thrones, successful?
Little bit.
Little bit?
Okay. Sleeper hit. Okay, so this is set nearly 200 years earlier. It's a prequel. So if you like the original, there will be no returning characters, right?
All new.
All new.
Okay.
Right? And so you can actually watch this for the first time if you haven't watched Game of Thrones. But also, it stands over the...
Well, radiation leaks from Europe's biggest nuclear power station could spread hundreds of miles and affect 13 different countries, a terrifying new map has revealed. The Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in southern Ukraine lies on a knife edge over fears that Russian forces stage a false flag attack on the site. Of course, it could be in the reverse as well. But in a map created by the Ukrainian Hydrometeorological Institute, shared by Ukrainian BBC journalist, that's a cloud of radiation from a potential leak at the plant could be seen spreading across Eastern Europe in the space of 3 days, reaching as far as the Austrian border. Ukraine has claimed a nuclear catastrophe could take place at the Zaporizhzhia power plant, with the country's President Zelensky saying his scientists are in constant touch with the International Atomic Energy Agency. The plant's been in the hands of Putin's forces since the early stages of the Ukraine war, but nuclear inspectors say they've not been permitted inside. So we're going to keep a close eye on that right now. Around 500 Russian troops are currently stationed at the plant, along with some 20 Kremlin nuclear specialists. So, tense situation. Of course, nothing may happen, but we'll keep you updated. Either way, stay with TNS, and as usual, share our reports. For Texas News Studio, Mark Mars, talk to you soon at another report. See you then.
Arms sales to Taiwan, and other Western countries have followed suit. Taiwan's economy is among the 25th largest in the world. The EU is its largest foreign investor and its strongest international backer, despite having no formal relations. US-Taiwan ties are probably the closest they've ever been. Taiwan also has a geostrategic importance to the United States and its allies in Northeast Asia. Taiwan sits in the center of the first island chain, which China views as a central part of US strategy to contain Chinese military projection. To the south of the island is the Bashi Channel, part of the Luzon Strait, one of the few international waterways through which China's naval forces can threaten US territories, including Guam, Hawaii, and the continental United States. But military planners in the United States have understood the geostrategic significance of Taiwan since the Cold War. Put differently, the US government understands what China fears most. And it's not Taiwan per se, it is Taiwan's democracy and the fear of siding with America. So when Americans see China ratcheting up pressure against the island nation and Beijing issuing threats to reunify by force, they do not see just a threat to liberty. America sees it as a threat to themselves.
From our studios live in New York City, I'm Susan Tehradi, and this is We Are, World is One.
Vladimir Putin has launched this invasion into Ukraine.
There, of course, are many Russians who do support this action, who believe that Ukraine is the aggressor, that Russia is trying to liberate people there.
After the COVID-19 pandemic, now we have a war in Europe.
Problem with oil and it being exported around the world could just further drive that wedge when it comes to shifting alliance.
The Baltic nations are very concerned about the humanitarian issues that are unfolding further south in the east of Europe.
Germany is about to turn off its last 3 nuclear reactors. Tens of millions of people are under lockdown across China as surging virus cases prompt the return of mass tests.
From the botched military withdrawal in Afghanistan, which created so many unexpected questions.
Hello, I'm Jodie Cohen, broadcasting from Jerusalem. You're watching We Are, World is One.
Israel might be on the verge of getting a new government.
There is a sense that authorities are beginning to run out of ideas.
Hello and welcome. You're watching We Are, World is One with me, Alison Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa.
President Muhammadu Buhari says this latest attack on school children will be the last war in Nigeria.
It doesn't matter who is looking for power now, but the fact that it's not going more on attracting humanitarian issues.
You're watching We On, World is One. I'm Hadi Francis, coming to you live for this newscast from Beirut, Lebanon.
It's a huge blow for what remains of the pro-democracy movement here in Hong Kong.
This week on World at War, deadly explosions rock Crimea, destroying key Russian military assets. China ups the stakes in the battle for the dominance of the Indian Ocean. coverage of the big battle between superpowers. Only on We Are World is One.
This is Sky News, the headlines. Accusations of positive discrimination by the RAF as leaked emails claim it artificially inflated its diversity numbers.
If in the past there is evidence that somebody has, deliberately or otherwise, been engaged in positive discrimination, that is against diversity rules, and we will be investigating that and we'll make sure people are held to account.
Also, NHS bosses warn of a humanitarian crisis over concerns that rising energy costs could cause excess deaths this winter.
Self-inspection with the chemo, you get really cold and you feel the cold, and I'm not a cold person. I'm quite a hot-blooded person, so it's never bothered me before.
Former Cabinet Minister Michael Gove endorses Rishi Sunak to be the next Conservative Party leader. A member of the Beatles' Islamic State terror cell is sentenced to life in prison in the US. Sir Alex Ferguson gives evidence at Ryan Giggs' trial, saying he never saw him lose his temper. And a special report on the Afghan refugees still in temporary accommodation and facing the threat of eviction. Welcome to the programme. Sky News has obtained leaked emails that suggest the Royal Air Force has artificially inflated its diversity numbers to hit government targets for female and ethnic minority recruits. It's alleged that RAF recruitment officers were directed to prioritise the placement of women and ethnic minorities on training courses last year. Well, the Armed Forces Minister, James Heatley, said it's not true that the recruitment of white men was paused, but if there is any evidence of that, then the people responsible would be held to account. Sky's Deborah Haynes has this exclusive report.
Me, fly that thing. No, this thing.
Attracting a diverse workforce is a priority for air chiefs, like society at large. Adverts such as this one is a form of positive action to draw different faces into what's traditionally been a largely white male profession. But defence sources allege the diversity push may have prompted some positive discrimination that could impact UK defences if some white men are being unfairly disadvantaged. That would be illegal, and a minister insisted it wouldn't be tolerated.
No minister in the MOD and no chief of any service gets to break the law. And so if there is evidence of positive discrimination, the people responsible for that will be held vigorously to account.
The RAF has been in the spotlight this week after Sky News revealed its head of recruitment had resigned over what defence sources said were impossible diversity targets. The sources said she'd quit in protest following an effective pause on making job offers to white men in favour of ethnic minorities and women. Yet the minister said the pause was for all new entrants, to allow air chiefs to explore whether they could use positive action to boost diversity levels.
What is definitely not true is that recruitment of white men has in any way been paused. It's definitely not true that women and ethnic minorities are being loaded onto courses now, whilst white men are not.
But a former fast jet pilot released this internal email on his YouTube channel.
Unless they and female.
Tim Davies claimed it showed in 2020 the RAF appeared to be willing to hold back white men from taking an aptitude test as part of selection, though the RAF said the instruction was quickly corrected.
This is positive discrimination against someone because of an immutable characteristic, which we know in this case happens to be their skin colour and their sex. It's white men. It's indefensible what's happening right now within the service.
In 2015, the government set a target for all the armed forces to hit 10% ethnic minority recruits and 15% female recruits by 2020. The RAF alone stretched the target for women recruits to 20% within that time frame. In March 2021, the service proudly announced it had met the targets. But armed forces' own diversity statistics don't show how these figures were achieved. They describe the female inflow as 18.3% and don't provide a breakdown for ethnic minorities. The RAF said the discrepancy is because its internal data excluded women choosing to rejoin. Leaked documents give a further insight into how the diversity targets were hit in the year 2020 to 2021, with sources alleging women and ethnic minorities were brought forwards onto training courses early to boost the statistics. One file revealed, the recruitment force continues to prioritise female candidates for customer relationship management. Another document sets out how the bringing forwards of some women into training courses early had impacted the following 12 months' targets. It read, the pipeline remains depleted of women candidates following the advanced loading of these candidates in the fourth quarter of the previous year. An RAF spokesperson said all its recruitment action was legal and said operational effectiveness is of paramount importance and no one is lowering the standards to join the Royal Air Force. The RAF recruits for many professions and, like the rest of the armed forces, is determined to be a force that reflects the society it serves to protect. The Royal Air Force has a well-earned reputation for operational excellence that's founded on the quality of our people. We will always seek to recruit the best talent available to us. No one's disputing the RAF's proud past, but there are internal voices who are worrying about the force's future. Deborah Haynes, Sky News.
Michael Gove has endorsed Rishi Sunak to be the next Conservative Party leader. Writing in The Times, the former cabinet minister accused the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss of taking a holiday from reality with her tax plans. Our political correspondent Liz Bates has more details from Westminster.
We're quite late on to this race now, but it's still a big moment, and that is because Michael Gove is what's considered in British politics a big beast. He's had lots of high-profile jobs. He's been in Cabinet, Education Secretary, Justice, more recently levelling up the Secretary. He's also had a run at the Tory leadership himself a couple of times, and his opinion holds a lot of weight among his colleagues and in Westminster more widely. And tonight he has thrown his weight behind Rishi Sunak in that article for The Times, very much against the tide of this campaign, because up until this point the momentum and the big endorsements have very much gone the way of Liz Truss. I'm sure Rishi Sunak will tonight be feeling like finally something has gone his way instead. In that article for The Times, the way he set out this decision is he says that Liz Truss's campaign has been a holiday from reality, and that her tax cuts will put the stock options of FTSE 100 executives before the poorest. When he turns to Rishi Sunak, what he says is that as Prime Minister, he will put the strength of the state at the service of the weakest and provide millions of people with the support they need during the cost of living crisis. The question, of course, is on the timing and whether this endorsement will make a big impact, particularly with the Conservative members. They, in the end, are the ones that will decide who will be the next Prime Minister. And, of course, at this stage, most of them have voted already. And of course, when it comes to the polls, Liz Truss seems to be pulling so far ahead. Can anything at this stage turn the tide against her? It seems like maybe, even though this is a big moment, it could be a little too late.
Now, NHS leaders have warned the government that we're approaching a humanitarian catastrophe this winter. The NHS Confederation made an urgent call for more help with the cost of living crisis to avoid a public health emergency. Earlier this year, over half of people in Britain felt their health had been negatively affected by the rising cost of living, according to a YouGov poll. 15% of people polled said they'll be completely unable to afford their current energy use under the coming higher prices, regardless of cuts. And now the NHS Confederation estimates that 10,000 people could die because of lack of heating. Laura Bundock reports from Hillingdon in northwest London.
Come winter, Brian and Barbara say they'll live in their lounge, heating just one room, their answer to rising energy bills.
I usually put an extra jumper on or socks or something like that, you know, or really jogging trousers, anything to sort of keep me a bit warmer.
Brian even sleeps on the sofa, and talk of NHS pressures is troubling him.
I had a heart attack many years ago, and you're more prone to that, so I'm a bit worried that the ambulance can't respond quite quick enough if I need the problems. What will happen when you get into hospital? I don't want to sit around for hours on end waiting for a bed in an ambulance. In a corridor or something.
A little further down the road, and their neighbour Rafi and his family are enjoying the summer.
But what is our sense of where the war stands right now? I know it's not as simple as who's up and who's down, but the U.S. has sent a lot of aid to Ukraine. Clearly, it's made an impact. But what's the best assessment in terms of who is, for lack of a better word, winning at the moment?
Yeah, I think if you asked that question about a month ago, folks would say Russia. I think that has shifted a little bit recently here. Russia has not made the same gains that it had been making, and it has had to take a bit of a step back. I think the big help has been that US aid, particularly those long-range HIMARS systems, allowing Ukraine to shoot, 100 to 200 kilometers. We've seen, munition depots on Russian lines, across Russian lines, exploding recently. That's a lot due to that aid that's coming from the US. Although the ones in Crimea, Ukraine has said those are, dissidents there, Ukrainian special forces, although it could also be weapon systems that we don't know about quite yet.
Tell us more about these Chinese and
to
Russian
stay
joint
home.
military forces.
Those workers have been continuing to work and operate the plant since Russia took over the plant with its military in early March. There's about 10,000 employees at the plant, and the number of Russian employees at the plant is not entirely clear. The context of this, of course, is that the plant supplies power to Ukraine. It's one of the largest power plants in Europe, and the energy that it produces continues to supply Ukrainian homes. Russia has been trying to find a way to reroute that energy to supply occupied territories in the south of Ukraine and in Crimea.
The United Nations Security Council is reportedly witnessing a deadlock over extending the travel ban waivers to a group of Taliban officials in Afghanistan. The exemptions for these 13 Taliban officials expire on Friday. The diplomats claim that a 30-day extension to travel ban waivers for them was blocked by Ireland, while Russia and China battled for renewing the travel ban waivers for 90 days. A proposal that was opposed by the UK, France, Albania, and Ireland. The US proposal to renew the waivers pertaining to 6 Taliban officials for traveling to Qatar only could not build only also could not build consensus. The council will now debate on a new proposal by Russia and China that seeks renewal of travel ban waivers for 13 Taliban officials with limited scope of their travel to China, Russia, and other regional countries. The previous waiver extension was made on the 20th of June. These exemptions are made solely for travel required for participation in peace and stability discussions. The panel has also decided to grant a limited asset freeze exemption for these officials to finance the exempted travels. And this comes in the backdrop of the US claim that it no longer believes that the Taliban are capable of implementing the pledges that they made in Doha while signing a peace agreement with American negotiators. The US State Department spokesman Ned Price said that Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri's presence in Kabul reinforces the idea that the Taliban have not been able to comply with the commitments that they had made. In February 2020, the US and the Taliban signed a peace agreement in Doha. The agreement ended the 20-year-long war between 2001 and 2021, as both the parties agreed to a ceasefire, and also led to the withdrawal of the US forces from Afghanistan on the 31st of August 2021. However, Zawahiri's presence in Kabul and the apparent protection given to the deceased terrorists suggesting that the Taliban are still holding Afghanistan as a safe haven for terror. The country has also been witnessing terror attacks by the terror group Islamic State in the recent days. The makers of the paracetamol drug Dolo have been accused of giving doctors freebies worth about $125 million. They have been accused by the Central Board of Direct Taxes, which falls under the Indian Ministry of Finance. And this was brought up in the Indian Supreme Court by an NGO for medical and sales representatives. The court was informed of this while hearing a plea to curb unethical medical practices in India. The drug maker was accused by the CBDT on the 13th of July after the Indian Income Tax Department conducted raids on 36 premises of the Dolo manufacturer across 9 states. It had said that the Bengaluru-based Micro Labs Limited had spent the money on freebies, such as covering the travel expenses and gifts for doctors. The petitioners seek to give statutory backing to the Uniform Code of Pharmaceutical Marketing Practices. The code, which was introduced in January 2015, is presently voluntary. The Indian government regulates the prices of drugs with a dosage strength of up to 500 milligrams. The body said that the Dolo makers had spent millions to get doctors to prescribe its 650 milligram tablets, and the prices for these are not regulated and result in higher profit margins for the company. The plea was being heard by a 2-member bench of the Indian Supreme Court. One of the judges said, and I'm quoting, "What you are saying is not music to my ears." He said that he had been infected by COVID-19 in June and prescribed the same drug. The plea stated that the right to health is a part of the right to life, so pharmaceutical companies should follow ethical marketing practices. It seeks to make drug makers responsible for offering freebies to doctors in exchange for prescribing their drugs. The Supreme Court directed the Indian government to reply within 10 days, and the next hearing on this matter will be taking place on the 29th of September. Cases of kickbacks are not new in the pharmaceutical industry. 15 Indian neurologists were suspended in February this year for taking freebies from a Gujarat-based pharmaceutical company. The US has seen many such cases. 36 people were charged by the Department of Justice this July for taking kickbacks in exchange for laboratory referrals. Unneeded medical tests were conducted and billed to the government. It is estimated that the fraud cost the US government more than $1.4 billion in losses. China's Robot Expo 2022 has opened in Beijing. It has a lot to offer, from robot COVID-19 sample collection to a mechanic arm sorting your fruit basket. Another piece of Michael Jordan memorabilia is set to spark a bidding war. Jordan's game-worn Chicago Bulls jersey from Game 1 of the 1998 NBA Finals will be featured in Sotheby's online auction next month. Jordan led Bulls to the NBA title in 1998, his sixth and final championship with the Chicago franchise that crown-capped a second three-peat in a span of 8 years. The 98 season cemented Jordan's legacy as the greatest basketball player of all time. A new generation has been introduced to the legend of Michael Jordan through the Netflix documentary The Last Dance, and the iconic red-away jersey featured throughout episode 10 of the series. It is worth about $3 to $5 million, marking the highest auction estimate for any piece of Jordan memorabilia. Last year, a pair of sneakers worn by Jordan early in his career sold for nearly $1.5 million, setting a record price at auction for game-worn footwear.
So here we have Michael Jordan's 1998 NBA Finals, The Last Dance jersey from Game 1. When you think about, the arc of Michael Jordan's career and him coming to his last chance at a sixth NBA championship, The Last Dance really holds a special place in the hearts of all Michael Jordan fans. And this is really one of the most significant artifacts for Michael Jordan to ever appear at auction.
If there is a video player that most of us have used, chances are it is the VLC. It is a convenient media player for most. It is quick to download and easy to install. It can play almost all types of multimedia files. You can use it on your phone, your tablet, or computer. But to the surprise of many, the user-friendly media player appears to have been banned in India. And many of us have not even realized it. Why is that? Because we already have the media player on our systems, so it is working for us. But new users will not be able to access the website and the download link. While the website is down, you can still download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. And if reports are to be believed, the ban appears to have been in place since February or March this year. Some reports even suggesting that the VLC media player had been banned because the platform was used by China-backed hacking group for cyber attacks to install malware on devices. According to Section 69A of the Information Technology Act 2000, the Indian government has the power to ban or resist applications and websites that threaten the security, integrity, and sovereignty of the country. And the exact reason for this ban is not known. Videoland, the developer of VLC, is seeking help on Twitter. The company says it does not know the reason behind the sudden ban either. It's likely that the platform was banned along with 54 Chinese apps in February, but VLC is not a China-based software. It is backed and developed by a French group. The alleged ban is baffling to many. And with that, we're taking a break at this point. It's a wrap on this edition. Stay tuned to Beyond World is One. Thanks very much for watching.
On Today Tonight, we get you all the day's top developments.
Russia has threatened to deploy nuclear weapons and hypersonic missiles in the heart of Europe.
Breaking through the content clutter to get you the real picture.
The blatant economic mismanagement by the Rajapaksas will go down in history as one of the worst periods in the country.
The trail of destruction has left a deadly impact in the lives of South Africans.
Every day, 10 p.m. IST, 4:30 p.m. GMT.
The world is already suffering the consequences of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The stakes will be much higher if China clashes with Taiwan. Now there's a question mark on how US allies will respond. Taiwan calls itself an independent and sovereign state, but China disagrees. Japan has expressed concerns over the PLA's military drills. Europe looks divided, just like the rest of the world. How will the escalation in the Taiwan Strait impact China's border standoff with India? What about the US? They're backing Taiwan's push for independence. Despite everything, Pelosi is going. So what will China do? Will it launch a military response? Is the Biden administration prepared to risk that over a diplomatic visit?
Beyond India.
And top it up. This spring, the 37-year-old had enough. She paid out of pocket to see a regular doctor who immediately scheduled an emergency hysterectomy. I suffered for 4 years with cyclical pain. I had no choice. The only treatment was to remove my uterus and my cervix. I had to have a full hysterectomy. So I have one child, and I don't have the opportunity to have other children. Other veterans recounted similar experiences. The VA does not provide any abortion services, adding to growing concerns among military women.
NBC News was denied multiple requests for interviews by the VA, including access to their medical center here in Houston. Instead, they provided NBC with a statement saying approximately 300,000 women veterans of childbearing age rely on us for their health care, including services such as contraception, fertility care, and maternity care. And we will continue to make sure that they have timely access to the full suite of reproductive care.
Gotta start doing that. Not doing any women's health care for abortion. Why is that not happening?
Congresswoman Brownlee is hearing from women demanding better medical infrastructure that is specific to their needs, especially in states where abortion is banned. Democratic lawmakers say the VA can expand services under existing law.
The Secretary has the authority to make that full change. He can do it tomorrow if he wanted to.
Unlike the VA, the Department of Defense provides abortion services on military bases, where nearly 1 in 4 women say they were sexually harassed, but most don't report it, according to a study from the nonpartisan RAND Corporation. Lucy Delgadio says she was raped while serving in the military in the early 1990s.
My oldest is the product of my assault.
Lucy says she, not her abuser, was discharged after becoming pregnant, the military calling her unfit to serve. She lost her benefits, she says, experiencing homelessness while her mental health deteriorated, not only from military service, but from the assaults too.
We raised our right hand, so we should get the services that we rightly deserve. And that's all we expect. We want to get the services that our male counterparts get when they go to the VA.
Women are the fastest growing cohort in the veteran community, but there is worry among some of them that abortion regulations on top of existing healthcare issues among women will further impact recruitment.
This is fuel to the fire.
What do you want people to know about women veterans, especially with these restrictions in place?
We stood side by side, shoulder to shoulder. When we served, there wasn't a problem. I was the most visible service member, and now I'm the most invisible veteran. Why? Why is that?
And we pressed the VA why they don't expand services to include abortion care today, as you heard one woman there, Angela, asking Congresswoman Brownlee, but they did not reply. Still, these women say they're going to continue sharing their stories, however personal and painful to retell, in hopes that the VA will change their policies. Joshua?
All right, thank you, Julie. That's NBC's Julie Surkin reporting. A federal judge in Florida is blocking parts of a state education law as unconstitutional. Yesterday, the judge ruled on the Stop Wrongs to Our Kids and Employees Act, the Stop Woke Act. Governor Ron DeSantis was a champion of this law. It restricts conversations about race and discrimination in schools and businesses. The law faces a number of lawsuits. This ruling addressed a suit filed by a honeymoon registry company. It argued that the Stop Woke Act would prevent it from holding employee seminars and trainings. Judge Mark Walker ruled that the law violates the First Amendment. In his ruling, he referenced a hit TV show, quote, "Now, like the heroine in Stranger Things, this court is once again asked to pull Florida back from the upside down," unquote. The governor's office is expected to appeal the ruling. Today,
recruited to pay off old investors. And when you're desperate for new investors, that means
Stash House's vehicle, which had a pound of meth in it. But being the enterprising young men that they were, not knowing they were in with some really bad dudes, they found the meth. But did they decide, let's abandon our stolen car and our meth? No. Then they talked about, hey, I'm going to sell this meth and make some real money. That's right. So these little dudes not only ripped off a major international drug smuggling operation,
so
they
they're
were
dead
gonna
now in
sell the
prison
dope to make a profit. Well, they all got arrested. But it's funny how there's twists and turns because they did us a favor by stealing that car that day. All of that
have you been
led us
indicted
back
in the
to
big
Clay
meth?
Bryan, and we seized an additional 24 pounds of meth. And it all started because they stole the car that Clay was operating. Thank you, you little criminals. Rascals. Then there's DeMonte Munson. He's known as D-Money. He's a local rapper. He was a mastermind. He was one that really.
Oh yeah, no, they're gonna be killed in prison. That's what I'm expecting.
But here's the neat thing about DeMonte. He would go through the community. He would provide fireworks on the holidays. He would have Christmas giveaways. He would provide Easter egg hunts. You see, he was the good guy in the community. Made the money. Shared it with the kids. You know, he was grooming himself as a community charitable contributor for the underprivileged. The whole time he's doing it with smuggled and trafficked drug money. He had an associate.
He helped the community more than BLM has.
Samuel Javaris. Samuel Javaris got a legitimate Georgia driver's license with a false name on it. And he booked the flights. He utilized the false name. It worked. He had a robbery warrant and a VOP for battery on law enforcement that was 10 years old. We couldn't find him. He had taken on a new identity successfully.
Joe probably doesn't like this man.
He had a friend with him. Aldrea McPherson. You see, he's big time. He had a home in Fresno and a home in Davenport, and he moved the drugs.
When one officer asks too much, goes after the president's son.
Aldrea called children that she had access to and told them,
suspect fled from the cops and is hiding in the mall.
Hide the dope?
The cops are searching the mall for a suspect.
Are you kidding me? So what did they do with their money? They bought gold, lots of gold. This one even fit over my head like the last one, so I just hold it up. $36,000 worth of gold.
You're welcome.
So they're providing.
I got my chain, motherfucker. Got my chain.
They're buying gold. They're telling their
be worse than sharks. Hello.
Family and friends about how successful they are.
I got my gold chain.
And the whole time they're peddling poison to your kids.
I think we should just go and hit him with the nail gun in the head like we do the cattle.
Brian Haas, our state attorney, who is simply, as I've said before, the very best. There's not enough positive words to say because our state attorney's office is game on about how do we protect the people in the community? How do we keep people safe? And when we
they keep themselves safe by giving them meth.
Very difficult, complicated cases that some prosecutors across the state and nation want to run from because of their complexity. Our state attorney and his team run to those cases in order to protect the community. Mr. Haas.
Thank you, Sheriff.
I'm very thankful to have been able to be a part of this investigation from the very beginning and understand all the complexities and all the work that went into this.
That's
I
right.
think that these cases show
Where's my tac
how our
vest?
communities are all
It's on
tied,
my stand.
not just here within our county, but across our state and across our nation and across our world.
Tac vest only comes
Which is
out when
why
I
it's
hit
important
over
that we all do
200
our
bucks.
jobs to make sure that the criminals are being dealt with appropriately. Being easy on the criminals, wanting to be their friends, that's not the answer when you're dealing with folks like this. You've got to be aggressive and you've got to take control of the situation.
Get nail gun in the head like
This is a step in that direction. I think one of the things that really left an impact on me.
That's a lot of
was the
gold
amount of
chains.
work that went into this case, and I know some of the folks that were involved are here today.
I built a stand for my vest.
But across agencies, detectives, and folks that spent hours and hours and hours putting the time in, probably missing events with their family and things like that, making those sacrifices to put this case together. And I
Golden
think that,
raindrops,
a lot
just
of that
melted gold.
goes, a little bit unthanked for all the work that they did, but we certainly appreciated all the work that you've done. The case it's an important day here today, but there's a lot of work still to do, a lot of prosecutions. You see this board, that's a lot of cases. We have a lot of cases, and we just got some more.
I don't know,
But we're up
Don.
for the task, and we're committed to making sure that we
Lube
see
and good
this through all the
thoughts?
way to the end. It will take a long time. The last thing I'll say is a word of thanks to Sheriff Judd. If you look at all of the people up here today and all the folks that were assembled to make this happen, it's not just local folks, it's other state agencies, federal agencies. It's because of Sheriff Grady Judd and his leadership that this happened. It all starts at the top, and we are so fortunate to have our sheriff as the leader.
More of a guy ran in there, so now they got a
Thank you, Sheriff,
canine
for all
trying to
your work.
find the guy. Yeah, they probably been rotor-rooted pretty good to get the drugs up there.
Sheriff Marcos Lopez is a dear friend of mine, and our
It's that whole
counties not
piece.
only butt up to each other, but we have a major metropolitan center where the county line runs kind of through the middle of town. So we have part of the town, and Sheriff Lopez has the majority of the town.
Morning to you.
But we work closely every day on all kinds of investigations. And Sheriff Lopez is the epitome of professionalism.
I have all my mags loaded in my
Sheriff,
vest.
thank you for the opportunity to work with you.
My thinking is if I have to use it, I want everything ready to go.
Everyone.
All my stuff's on it, and everything's on my battle belt, so it's good to go.
All the people that work together to take care and make sure that we good.
I am no expert, but
cases
that's
together
like
prosecution with a state attorney. It's really important because this poison is really killing people, and criminals don't know borders or boundaries, and like the sheriff said,
Or
they
the
go back and
laws.
forth and oscillate at a poke. And,
Or they just don't care.
We really got to maintain a firm hand.
Kind of a
make sure
thing.
that our state prosecutors are putting them in prison for a long time. They don't care. Don't wait till some of this stuff hits your neighborhood and when your kids die. You guys got to be supportive and make sure when you go to those polls and elect those elected officials that are going to be tough on crime, be very selective and do your research.
Yeah, I have a lockpick kit. It's called a cat's
Property
paw.
values will drop.
I
You
just
start
shove it
getting
in
this
a
type of
door and
trials
I just kick
in
it and
your
it'll pop
area,
the door
and
open.
you're gonna regret it.
Pick just
So I
fine.
thank Sheriff for this opportunity and thank everyone for being here. All the men and women that do this every day and risk their lives to expose themselves to these dangers. There's a lot of work to be done. Like they
Yeah,
said,
or
this case
that,
will go on
Justin.
for a little bit, but all these people hopefully will stay in jail for a long time. Thank you all.
Lockpick kit, felony, cat's paw.
Thank you, Sheriff.
I think you're just a
and we
carpenter.
have Mark Bucknell, who is the special agent in charge out of Tampa with us from FDLE. Mark's teams and our team work together every day in short-term and protracted investigations, and this is only one more example. But FDLE is always there, and we love their energy and their enthusiasm, and we really love that statewide jurisdiction. Come on up. Thank you, Sheriff.
That's a good way of doing it. Tell me we're going to take him out of jail. If you get caught, it's fucking your ass. Sorry, buddy.
Without that hard work, we would not be here today to make us all look good. You guys are the true champions behind the scenes. Clearly, this drug trafficking organization does not know jurisdictional boundaries. And the amount of poison they peddle and the firearms and the amount of crimes that come with it is very, very scary, but it's a daunting task that obviously we're all up to handle. Again, they don't know jurisdictional boundaries, but I got good news for the public, either do we. As you see here, federal, state, local, all working hand in hand with big results. Again, I want to thank the men and women that put this case together. Excellent job. Job well done.
Not only does the public execution fund for the whole family, but also get rid of all those old vegetables you don't want.
Police Chief David Brennan, who's going to make some comments. Chief Brennan and his team and my team work together every day. Everything from minor disturbances to the most major international smuggling rings. And I can always
Astros, you might want to try that one again.
And Sheriff Brennan, maybe, I hope you don't.
I got my ass, the only thing I read there.
Chief, I worked for a Sheriff Brennan one time. Chief David Brennan is there.
I wouldn't be surprised if the FBI and the Homeland Security didn't really do much. It was mostly Sheriff's Office and local police.
Chief, come on up.
Just a hunch.
Thank you for the promotion today. So, we, as always, as he said, we're always working with the Sheriff's Office. We're also working with other agencies because we can't do this job, like they said, the drug dealers, they don't know.
No, firing squad costs too much money. Just a nail gun.
Country and international.
Done.
It's very important, one, to work with each other so we're successful in our community. Because it's not just Winter Haven.
Slow-moving hydraulic spike.
Even just for
very
the safety
cheap.
of our own detectives and making sure that we're working together and not
very
stepping on each
effective.
other's toes. As I look at this board today, there's several names that I see and recognize more than I would care to admit over the years, whether it's them or their family members that I dealt with back when I was a patrol officer or narcotics sergeant. Worked cases with the Sheriff's Office on them, doing different buys. And just to go back to what they're talking about in fentanyl and how dangerous that is these days, it's not just the people that are taking narcotics that they know may have.
Just picture someone's head right here,
It's also
too.
the people now that are probably buying marijuana, not wanting fentanyl, and don't know it's there. That's what we're dealing with. The overdoses are going up and up, and we're having to deal with that. And not just that, just the safety of our officers, not knowing every time they open up a package of drugs, what are they going to be dealing with. So I do appreciate the sheriff having us here today and the assistance we were able to give on this case.
Thanks, Chief. And our federal partners have chosen not to speak publicly, but don't let their lack of public comments overshadow the fact that they were game on and totally engaged every step of the way. And had it not been for them, there's a lot of things that we could not have accomplished.
Kaboom!
So you guys are simply awesome, and we appreciate it very much. Okay, does the media have any questions of any?
Yes, Jareth. Yes.
Yes, man. We've known about some of these players, and as
A
you
22 millimeter?
felony arrest. They've been arrested periodically, but the information came to us.
You mean a
that the
22
Gibson
caliber?
family
A
was
22
heavily
millimeter is
involved
pretty
in
big.
Major league methamphetamine smuggling.
That's like a
And
fucking
we've been working
tank
this
ship.
investigation about 2 years, a little more than 2 years. We're right at it, but information is, and we've known that they have been involved in smuggling,
It's like it's
and
big.
robberies, and drug dealing for a number of years, but we didn't know of this operation until we collected our intelligence and worked with the other officers involved. But you must understand that my organized crime team, my detectives at work and special investigations, and our supervisors, ladies and gentlemen, they're simply the very best in this business. And they're game on all the time, and they work with their colleagues across the state and nation, and that's why these cases come together. We still have 3 people out of state that are still at large and are on the lam that we're working with our colleagues. But when we can pick up the phone and the Fresno police game
that
on
sucks,
to help us,
Thomas.
that's important. The Orlando police officers and the police department's game on. But I can't overemphasize, these folks have been in trouble before. You know, these folks didn't roll out of Sunday school and decide they would create a little mischief this week. These are hard.
Is meth the new anthrax? No. It's just the 20 millimeter, just the tip, yeah.
Were these drugs that were in check bags?
Well, it sucks because I just missed the old one, and I wish they never went on a break.
Well, this drug was in checked bags, and sometimes they would have what they call ghost tickets. They would get a ticket to travel, check their bag, and never get on the airplane. and the suitcase would fly by itself. Other times, in this particular case where we took the 6 suitcases off, there were people on the planes with the drugs, 6 of them. But they're very talented and they're very experienced. So this is not the first time these drugs have leaked through, which causes you to be suspicious of when they schedule the flights and who was on duty down checking the baggage in, because they would come off of the planes, through the security, down the elevators, and spread out. We watched a very, very, very impressive effort.
There's a 20-millimeter gun for you.
For them to be able to pick their drugs up and avoid detection. We did surveillance, and people would come from Orlando.
Astro, thank you for the 99 cents.
And then down to Bar. And then back to Winter Haven.
Sirius donated 99 cents through Super Chat.
Mysterious. So
they were very They weren't hiding this among clothes. They were sending it in this form. So at the end of the day, there was a hook someplace. There had to be. LAX needs to get on this.
What's amazing to me is that you're sending them to that college or, your cousins coming from New York or whatever, and they're on the same plane as this.
Hey man, I was taking this plane, I'm tripping balls.
With drugs in the cargo hole underneath of them.
Sirius donated 99 cents.
This particular operation was here, but we would have to be naive not to think
I would want to buy one too,
other major
house comes first.
Operations going on just like this across the country. This is kind of 3 smuggling operations all working together. Like I said, there wasn't just one boss of this. They were kind of like
I cannot promise. That would definitely give me a copyright strike.
Different operations, but of course there is.
Can you tell us how many people were wiretapped and how that came about?
I can tell you, was it 9 telephones we listened to?
Do that in the bathroom
11
too.
telephones we listened to over this operation.
The struggle be real.
And understand, when you roll from phone to phone to phone, they drop phones and go to other phones, and then we have to go update the paperwork and get the state attorney's approval, and then ultimately the judge that's overseeing the case is approval before we can intercept the communications. But there was 11 different telephones in this operation.
All right, so a major drug bust down there in Florida. Again, Sheriff Grady Judd saying 85 people have been arrested and 12.8 million in drugs have been seized. This was 2 years in the making. It was a 2-year undercover operation. After the short 2-minute break, we'll bring you more news out of Florida.
Gonna have our little break, everyone. Remember. I hear extra voices in my head. I didn't know where the hell it was coming from. Oh, my other screen's up. Nice, the volcano over there in 2. People outside of the DC jail apparently strobing the cops, or cops are strobing them. I don't know what's going on. Those are for the people outside the jail of the people being held on January 6th. Number 3 is a storm chasing, but actually looks like a really nice day. And number 4 is that horrible news service where Fox News wants to always put a commercial on telling us who they are for reasons no one really knows. Not only is it crossing the border, but it's also made here too, right? Like, from what I've talked to a lot of firefighters and police EMTs, the amount of meth that they found being cooked up is it's kind of ridiculous, to be honest. I would say the world loves their drugs. Every country has their own drug problem. The only ones that kind of curb it is when it goes super high. Hi, Tim. Yo 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 yo. Countries like in Asia, they don't fuck with drug hedge.
For joining us on this Friday night. Well, police in Florida have identified the mother who died. She was killed after being struck by lightning. Meantime, her 10-year-old daughter was also struck, but she is expected to survive.
Jesus.
Here is more by our station, Fox 35 in Orlando.
You want to TikTok and you can't stop?
A very normal day for this mother, waiting right in this area for her child to get home from school. Would have been walking just right across the street over here. As she was waiting for them to leave school today, that's when the lightning hit. Not only hitting her, eventually killing her, but also making her child go to the hospital, and also an 18-year-old that was nearby, and injuring their dog. I've been speaking with some people in this area, and they tell me what happened today was traumatic. And
yeah, lightning, no joke.
Everything really happened quickly, and everyone responded to doing their part. You know, some guy yelled, "Call 911," so I picked up the phone, and then there was another guy calling. And
it wasn't the kind of day Joe White or anyone in the Trotwood Park neighborhood thought would happen. A lightning strike killing a mom, hurting a child, another teen, and a dog.
We are very fortunate in Winter Springs that we are a very close-knit family community. We care about one another, and
you think her limbs blew off when she got hit by lightning?
Pull together, we'll get through it.
Asking for a friend.
The community came together indeed. White told me he was waiting for his child to come home from school as well, and saw it all happen right before his eyes. He was about 10 feet away from where the mom was when the lightning hit. He told me everyone that was around came together to help.
intern from the school that ran out there and was holding the dog in the rain while the lightning was going on. So I told her I will take the dog and put her in the truck to dry off, and I'll take her home. And I told the police officer the address.
White said the dog was picked up later by a family friend who said it will be okay. Residents in the area and the mayor told me it was very emotional.
Yeah, real tough. And for kids that commonly use this area, for them to come out and witness these kinds of things is particularly tough for our children.
Seminole County Public Schools will have counselors on hand for any students and staff that have been impacted by this. Reporting in Winter Springs, Deborah Cho, Fox 13.
Hey, cat scum dog, I don't know, buddy. Told him to be out of this time of day. It's a school after all.
Florida regarding this devastating situation.
I assume they're all adults.
Andrew Tedesco was struck by lightning in the city of Winter Springs. Andrew's wife, Nicole Tedesco, was transported to the Oviedo ER but did not survive her injuries. Andrew's daughter, Ava Tedesco, was transported to the Arnold Palmer Hospital, where she spent the night for observation and has since been released. The dog, Vito, was transported to an emergency vet clinic where he spent the night.
We've literally have heard more about the dog than the actual people. As it should
I had
be.
the opportunity to spend the evening with Andrew last night, and I've been on the phone with him throughout the day today. While he's obviously devastated by his loss, he's doing remarkably well as he focuses his attention on caring for his daughters, Ava and Gia. Officer Tedesco and his family would like me to thank the Winter Springs Police Department, Seminole County Fire Department, Seminole County Public Schools, Seminole County Sheriff's Office, the staff at the Oviedo Medical Center, staff at Arnold Palmer Hospital, Sanford Airport Authority, and the victim advocates and chaplains that responded yesterday to provide services and assist them during this challenging time. To everyone who has expressed their interest in helping the Tedesco family, the Sanford Airport has created a GoFundMe account to collect donations, which will go directly to the family. If you go to the GoFundMe page and search honoring Nicole, wife of Andrew Tedesco. That will take you to our GoFundMe page. It's my understanding that other GoFundMe pages have already been established. I cannot verify to you whether those accounts are legit. While we do appreciate people wanting to help and, gather funds for the family, I don't know the legitimacy of those GoFundMe accounts. However, this is why we established this particular GoFundMe account, because I can assure you every cent will go to the family. Again, that's
a couple weeks ago, Joe, or Phaedra.
Andrew Tedesco. Andrew has asked me to pass on to everyone that he's overwhelmed with the kindness and support being expressed to him and his family, but asks that everyone please respect their privacy and give them the time they need to grieve during this difficult time. Before we take any questions, I'd like to turn it over to Chief Matt Track, who will provide you with a little bit of an update on the incident.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matthew Track. I'm the Chief of Police at Winter Springs Police Department. I'll give you little details about
2 people died from the lightnings. Oh, you mean the White House? I don't remember.
The city, we extend our sincere gratitude and condolences.
Here, 2 people died.
The Tedesco family, Sanford Airport Police during this difficult time. Yesterday, right around dismissal time, Keith Elementary, located on Tuscaloosa Road, let out. Ms. Tedesco picked up her children as she usually does, right off Trotwood Boulevard. School let out. She picked up her 2 daughters, crossed the street, and was subsequently struck by lightning. Immediately, 911 was called. Seminole County Fire Rescue responded and was on scene within minutes, provided life-saving measures. Witnesses on scene provided life-saving measures. Nicole was transported to the Oviedo ER, and Ava was transported to Arnold Palmer Hospital. Nicole was pronounced deceased at Oviedo ER, while Ava has recovered and has since been released from Arnold Palmer. This is a tragic, tragic incident that no one has ever expected. In 25 years of law enforcement, we've never dealt with something like this. Our community is strong. They're supportive. They're coming together. We want to thank all those that have helped with the family dog. And we will respect the wishes and be private with the Tedesco family as they grieve during this difficult time. I'd like to pass it over to our mayor, who has a few words to say.
Good evening. Really, ultimately, we are a very close-knit community. It is the wishes of our entire community, the city commissioners that are with me, and our entire city government that the Tedesco family understand that we all have families, and that this family is not alone. Winter Springs is an amazing place.
I would say Nicole would agree with you that he was guilty.
Really, we're willing to take questions at this point for any of us.
Ed Epstein did not kill himself. That is correct. Epstein was fucking murdered.
So what we believe is that the lightning actually struck a tree that they were standing next to.
Next month, but many, including Ukrainian President Zelensky, warning that would be far too late. In a sign of how dire the situation is, Kylie, the 16-year-old, last seen 2 weeks ago after leaving a late-night party, while authorities say they're now scaling back their search, and the group of amateur sleuths who are diving in to help. Plus, Vanessa Bryant's emotional testimony, the wife of late NBA star Kobe Bryant taking the stand, describing the painful moment she learned first responders took photos of her husband and 13-year-old daughter at the site of their death. The horrific images she says she lives in fear of seeing on social media. And the shocking surveillance video from Los Angeles, a flash mob ransacking a 7-Eleven, stealing snacks, cigarettes, and lotto tickets. The plea from police tonight to help track down the looters. Top story starts right now.
Good for them.
Hey, good evening. Tonight, fears of a nuclear catastrophe are growing greater by the minute in Ukraine. The country's largest power plant, the third in the world, in the hands of an unpredictable and volatile Vladimir Putin, whose offensive in other parts of the country has stalled. Employees who work at this nuclear plant in Zaporizhia fleeing in recent days, fearful of an impending disaster. We want to show you this cell phone video. It shows military vehicles marked with Russian symbols inside of the plant, which was seized by the Russian military in early March. Ukraine warning Russia could soon take the plant offline, a move that could trigger a toxic nuclear accident. Putin today signaling he'd be willing to allow inspectors inside of the plant next month, but many, including Ukrainian President Zelensky, warning that would be far too late. In a sign of how dire the situation is, officials in Ukraine conducting nuclear disaster response drills just miles from the plant, preparing for the worst case scenario. NBC's Megan Fitzgerald's on the ground in Ukraine and leads us off tonight.
Tonight, fears of a nuclear catastrophe at Europe's largest nuclear plant in Zaporizhia, Ukraine, are intensifying.
The United States remains deeply concerned.
Russia has been occupying the facility in Ukraine's east since the start of the war. Now, Ukraine is warning that Russia may take the plant off the electrical grid, a precarious move that energy experts say raises the risk of a nuclear accident, sending radioactive material across Europe.
And now they have some war machines, and they have explosive materials, and they have shelves, and it's a madness, absolute madness.
The power company that manages the plant says the Russians are already moving to shut it down, which would deny the country a key energy source, saying the Russian military is looking for fuel to power generators to keep the reactors cool.
The most dangerous status of reactor is when they're moving from the operations to cold mode.
This all comes as the UN Secretary General is in Ukraine meeting with President Zelensky.
Any potential damage to Zaporizhia is suicide.
The UN chief calling on international inspectors to go inside the plant immediately, echoed in a call today by the president of France to Vladimir Putin, who said he's open to inspectors. But earlier today, a Russian official said the visit may not happen until September. President Zelensky has repeatedly warned that may be too late. Meanwhile, there are new signs that Ukraine is on the offensive. Strikes hit Russian-controlled Crimea twice in a week, taking out military jets and destroying ammunition depots. A Ukrainian government official confirmed to NBC News that pro-Ukrainian guerrilla fighters
Be patient with me, guys. I'm having a bunch of issues here. Get that back up.
have been involved with the attack.
I'm going to back it up because there's something I want to point out here.
Sending radioactive material across Europe.
And now they have some war machines, and they have explosive materials, and they have shelves, and it's a madness, absolute madness.
The power company that manages the plant says the Russians are already moving to shut it down, which would deny the country a key energy source, saying the Russian military is looking for fuel to power generators to keep the reactors cool.
The most dangerous status of reactor is when they're moving from the operations to cold mode.
Obviously, Russia has really bad luck with their nuclear power plants.
All comes as the UN Secretary General is in Ukraine meeting with President Zelensky.
Any potential damage to Zaporizhia is suicide.
The UN chief calling on international inspectors to go inside the plant immediately, echoed in a call today by the president of France to Vladimir Putin, who said he...
Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Never fails. It's not what I wanted to happen.
Mistake away from
President Zelensky has repeatedly warned that may be too late.
And the leader of the Golos political party, White House announced, and that plan, the third, how dire the situation is. Officials in Ukraine,
Zaporizhia, Ukraine, are intensifying grid, a precarious move that energy experts say raises the risk of a nuclear accident, sending radioactive material across Europe.
And of course, they don't show the map that actually shows where the fallout's going to go. So why is the media trying to hide that? For those that were here earlier, I did show that map, and I'll bring it up again here in a little bit.
Now they have some war machines, and they have explosive materials, and they have shelves, and it's a madness, absolute madness.
The power company that manages the plant says the Russians are already moving to shut it down, which would deny the country a key energy source, saying the Russian military is looking for fuel to power generators to keep the reactors cool.
The most dangerous status of reactor is when they're moving from the operations to cold mode.
This all comes as the UN Secretary General is in Ukraine meeting with President Zelensky.
Any potential damage to Zaporizhia is suicide.
The UN chief calling on international inspectors to go inside the plant immediately, echoed in a call today by the president of France to Vladimir Putin.
Okay, that circle in the sky, that contrail that's going in a perfect circle, just want to give everybody kind of a little heads up on it. That's an air refueler. That appears to be Russian troops, not Ukrainian, that are standing there. So I would assume that's more than likely a Russian refueler. I don't believe NATO's in there refueling Ukrainian aircraft. Otherwise, that would put us directly involved with this conflict. And, of course, Russia would retaliate against NATO. But that's what you're seeing. I used to see these all the time in the Nevada desert, down towards Vegas. This is a refueling loop that Monkey points out a lot on the ADS-B, the Sky Glass. That's kind of what it looks like. That plane just goes around in the same exact circle constantly, and then it'll flatten out a little bit for fighters to come in and get refueled and go back on their sorties. Just want to point that out.
Who said he's open to inspectors. But earlier today, a Russian official said the visit may not happen until September. President Zelensky has repeatedly warned that may be too late. Meanwhile, there are new signs that Ukraine is on the offensive. Strikes hit Russian-controlled Crimea twice in a week, taking out military jets and destroying ammunition depots. A Ukrainian government official confirmed to NBC News that pro-Ukrainian guerrilla fighters have been involved with the attacks.
All right, Megan Fitzgerald joins us now live from Kyiv. Megan, today the White House announced a new $775 million aid package for Ukraine. Give us some details of where that money's going to go.
Hey, well, Tom, we're told by the Pentagon that that new package will include more ammunition for rocket systems, artillery, along with missiles, and for the first time, long-endurance, low-flying drones. Tom?
Megan Fitzgerald reporting for us tonight from Ukraine. Megan, we thank you for that. With the nuclear threat looming large over Europe, we are grateful to be joined again on Top Story by Kira Rudik. She's a member of the Ukrainian parliament and the leader of the Golos political party. And a reminder, when we first met Kira back in Ukraine, she was learning how to use an AK-47 to defend her country. So that tells you just a little bit about her bravery. Kira, I want to start with what you put out on Twitter. Let's take a look right now. This is what you tweeted. Russia threatens to stop Europe's largest Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Occupiers are planning to carry out a provocation there. This is a real nuclear blackmail. Putin resorts to the craziest methods. What do you think Putin's endgame is here?
Well, first of all, his endgame is either to threaten everyone and make sure that our allies push us to negotiate with Putin for everybody's sake, or to at least cut off 10 to 15% of electrical energy that we are receiving from the Zaporizhia nuclear plant and make it extremely hard for Ukraine to survive through this winter.
Kira, talk to me, Kira.
It's getting stuck.
Yeah, if you could explain that to our viewers here, it's the largest nuclear power plant in all of Europe, as we've reported. If that goes off, what does it mean for the people of Ukraine?
So it means that we will have 10 to 15% less energy that we provide ourselves, and we will have to buy it. And if we will have to buy it, we will need more and more money. And we are right now $5 billion a month short. $5 billion every month we are asking from our allies, from our supporters, including United States, including United Kingdom, European countries. So we will have to get more money to buy energy just to survive on a very, very basic level. And Putin is making it harder for us.
So how do you defend against this, right? Because you don't want to have battles and or combat near the nuclear site.
Oh, you know, before Putin, it was kind of unspoken mean of the war that nobody is fighting near the nuclear plants. We all remember Chernobyl and the tragedy that happened there. So nobody could even think that Putin will be literally playing with fire. So what we need right now is to have international community and UN representation there at the station to ensure that this is a neutral zone. Because it's so absolutely insane that someone would be playing there with the rockets, and we will be one mistake away from having like another huge nuclear tragedy. This is nuclear blackmail.
The world praying that there's some kind of resolution that can be figured out there, even though we know it's highly unlikely. As Megan mentioned in the report just before you came on the show, the Biden administration announced another $775 million in aid today. What else do you need from the U.S. and other allies at this moment?
We need to get more and more weapons. We are extremely thankful for everything that we are receiving, but every single victory of Ukrainian army that you see right now, that you hear about right now, is because we are getting more and more weapons in. If we are facing Russian soldiers not being empty-handed, we are winning. And this is why we need to continue the weapon supply to go on, and we need to just make sure that it wouldn't stop and it wouldn't go down, but will be continuously increased. We also need money. As I told you, $5 billion every month. Just we need to find it just to survive. And this is something that our allies are happy with.
Kira Rudik, a member of Ukraine's parliament. Kira, we thank you for your time, and please stay safe there. Next, back here at home in the severe storms wreaking havoc across the country. Take a look. In Pasadena, Texas, this 18-wheeler flipping over the side of a highway, colliding with another truck. You see it right there. You see them before. The driver escaping, though, the vehicle before it toppled over, which is pretty incredible. And in South Carolina, this was quite the scene. An alligator shocking residents swimming through completely flooded yards and roads. For more on the ongoing flooding threat, NBC meteorologist Bill Cairns joins us now. Bill, I know you're also tracking some breaking news on tropical storm warnings in South Texas.
Yeah, this popped up really quickly, Tom. This is that time of year. We're August, we're September. This is the peak of the hurricane season. It doesn't take much for something to flare up, and this has happened in about the last 24 hours. This big white blob here you see in the southern Gulf of Mexico is starting to turn into a tropical depression. We think that should happen later tonight, and then tomorrow it should have just enough time to become Tropical Storm Danielle. So where is this heading? Here's the latest from the Hurricane Center. They're calling this a potential tropical cyclone. It's not quite yet an official depression. It's going to get there later on tonight. They believe it's over warm water, it's in favorable conditions, and as long as it doesn't make landfall earlier than anticipated, it should become a tropical storm. So we actually have a forecast cone and path for this, and it does include South Texas, and that's why the Brownsville, Harlingen area and South Padre Island is under a tropical storm warning. The odds of this becoming a hurricane are fairly low. We think you're going to get some gusty winds. We don't think the storm surge is going to be a big issue because it's not going to be a strong enough storm for that, but it could produce some locally heavy rain. So to keep that in mind, conditions going downhill in South Texas come Saturday evening. Now for the flood threat. We've got flash flood warnings outside of Phoenix and Tucson once again. This is a broken record day after day, about 9 million people included in this. But here's what's going to change. This tropical moisture is on the move. It's heading for Texas. at the same exact time that that tropical storm is going to be heading for Texas, we're going to have a squeeze play event where we're just going to wring out a lot of moisture. So tomorrow, moderate flash flood risk to Tucson to El Paso. And then I think this is probably going to get upgraded with the latest information. But on Sunday, that heavy rain moves from Lubbock to Dallas. And Tom, it's pretty incredible. All that rain and all the drought that we've been talking about is going to collide right in the middle of where we've had some of the worst drought conditions in the country. We're expecting 7 to 10 inches of rain around Dallas in the next 5 to 7 days.
All right, it's going to be a busy week ahead, Bill. We appreciate that. We want to stay with weather now, though. We want to go to Europe, where a summer of extreme heat and severe weather is showing no signs of letting up. We've told you a little bit about it here on Top Story. Some of it even turning deadly. The wildfires, droughts, and punishing rainstorms sweeping across several countries. NBC's Matt Bradley has the latest.
Tonight, a week of weather hell in Europe. Wildfires continue to burn across the Mediterranean region, while the north faces punishing storms which have already claimed several lives. No end in sight for the multiple blazes in regions not usually known for fire-prone conditions. What's he doing? In Spain, a frantic scene as a high-speed train drives right into the path of a brush fire, causing passengers to flee. 11 people were injured and 4 people suffered serious burns as they tried to escape the flames. In a nearby town, firefighters working desperately to stop that same fire from consuming part of the village. They were successful, but 2 firefighters were injured. Fires in the region have forced the evacuation of at least 11 towns. Authorities say they've made progress stabilizing the fires, but that a sudden change in the weather could cause more problems.
Hay una noticia en contra que es que sobre el mediodía va a rolar el viento, va a cambiar la dirección del viento y esa zona que está tranquila se nos puede convertir en uno de los frentes.
To the west, in Portugal, wildfires unleashing massive plumes of smoke, which have drifted 250 miles to blanket Madrid in Spain with heavy smog.
Increíble cómo la naturaleza puede llegar a manifestarse en tantas partes, ¿no?
Even islands in the center of the Mediterranean Sea facing the flames. Early this morning, Sicily dotted with fires fueled by high temperatures up to 104 degrees Fahrenheit.
As temperatures warm globally by just a couple degrees, it's easier for multiple areas to be getting heat waves, for example, at the same time, or droughts or fires.
Meanwhile, in other parts of Europe, the opposite problem, with violent storms sweeping across the Alps. Tragedy in Austria where 2...
All right, I'm going to pause it there for a minute. Let's realize that we had Hunga Tunga Hunga volcano blow up, which put an ash cloud in our atmosphere, which is reflecting some, but acting as a thermal blanket around the earth right now. Having that big a volcano explode in the Pacific could be a large part of what's playing into our extreme heat conditions right now, as well as our solar activity. It's a combination of both. Minus the volcano, the solar activity is a cycle, so we expected this. But politicians are going to use this as every excuse to take their World Economic Forum to the brink.
Little girls were killed by trees that were blown over, and 3 women killed by lightning strike. 13 people in total were injured in that storm, according to officials. Plus, Venice hit with strong winds and rain. And in Tuscany, 2 people were killed from falling trees, while rainstorms battered beach towns on the French island of Corsica, killing 5 people.
Is this the new normal for Europe? Probably this is a really exceptional year, let's hope so, but it's giving us a hint of things that could become very common in the future.
The increasing severity of the weather is becoming undeniable in Europe. Throughout the summer, many parts of the continent suffered through their hottest temperatures on record, regularly rising above 100 degrees Fahrenheit and worsened by an alarming drought. This week, parts of France's Loire River almost dried up. One resident of the area expressing anxiety about the ever more apparent effects of climate change.
M'inquiète de tout. C'est-à-dire, je m'inquiète pour la Terre, je m'inquiète. C'est pas seulement pour ici que je m'inquiète. C'est.
Matt Bradley, NBC News, London.
All right, we turn now to the record-breaking number of crossings at the southern border. U.S. Customs and Border Protection say encounters have now surpassed 2 million this fiscal year alone. A heated issue ahead of the midterm elections and one of the biggest challenges for the Biden administration as Republicans become increasingly critical of the hundreds of thousands of migrants entering the country. Tonight, we'll show you the families making the dangerous journey north and the children, some not even old enough to walk, Telemundo's Valeria Leon has been following that story for us.
Among the crowds of migrants making their way to the U.S., children, some not old enough to walk, but have already traveled hundreds of miles. Little boys and girls, many of whom were born along the long journey north, like little 3-year-old Valentina, who's traveling with her Venezuelan parents, but was born in Colombia.
Por tener una niña pequeña, o sea, México nos da como la oportunidad de tener los permisos más fáciles.
This family soon adding to what has become a record-breaking year of border crossings. In this fiscal year alone, Customs and Border Patrol have encountered more than 2 million migrants, breaking the record previously set last year. Most of those encounters single men and family units. And while pandemic-era policies like Title 42 are still limiting migrants' ability to claim asylum, it hasn't deterred families from continuing their journey north.
No conoció lo terrible que es vivir en tu país de origen, que es Venezuela, con la dictadura que tenemos.
Now shelters like this in the southern state of Oaxaca say every day about 1,000 migrants arrive, entire families, often with little ones in hand.
Nosotros duramos 7 años en Ecuador y nació el niño. Y de ahí nos venimos para acá.
Waiting for government permits that will allow them to continue their way across Mexico in hopes of one day reaching a new home that will grant them new opportunities. Valeria Leon, NBC News.
Okay, we thank Valeria for that story. Next up, back here in California, 2 small planes colliding in a horrifying crash, leaving no survivors. Security cam video capturing the moments just after the accident, and audio from the cockpit where you can hear the pilots just before the disaster. Here's Jake Ward.
Tonight, a rare accident in midair. 2 small planes in a deadly collision.
Everybody, please be advised on airport Watsonville. We have a couple of accidents.
Officials announced there were no survivors. 3 on board both planes were killed as they attempted to land in a Northern California airport.
All of a sudden,
Watsonville.
I saw in the blink of an eye another plane there, and they hit each other, and it was almost as if the faster plane had gone right through the smaller plane.
Security video showing the explosion right after impact. The planes crashed shortly before 3 p.m. Pacific yesterday, according to the city of Watsonville.
We just heard like a big crash, and it was these 2 planes. But we looked up and we saw the plane, like I think it was a jet, it was smoking.
Air traffic controller audio revealed the pilots of the twin-engine Cessna and the second plane, a single-engine Cessna, were talking to one another just before the accident.
Looking for traffic on left base. Yeah, I see you. You're behind me. I'm gonna go around then, because you're coming at me pretty quick, man.
An investigation is now underway by the FAA and NTSB.
I've been here since July of 2011. We have never had a collision of this nature.
While these accidents are infrequent, they do happen. 3 plane collisions happened last year, and this collision will be the 3rd one this year, according to the NTSB. Greg Feith, a former NTSB investigator, says human error is likely to blame.
It really is dependent on the pilot and their skills, abilities, and knowledge to employ not only the use of that technology, but also the use of really their eyes, because that's what it's all about, is see and avoid.
The city-owned airport does not have an air traffic control tower to direct planes, which is normal for an airport this size.
The airspace around Watsonville at this particular time, nor the volume of traffic, would support the costs of bringing a control tower to the field.
Investigators now left to solve the mystery of this deadly collision. Luckily, no one on the ground was injured. Jake Ward, NBC News, San Francisco.
Okay, we want to stay in California now. The emotional testimony by Kobe Bryant's widow, Vanessa Bryant, in her lawsuit against Los Angeles County. Bryant says she suffered emotional distress after graphic crash photos of her husband were taken, then shared among first responders. NBC News national correspondent Miguel Almaguer has this story.
Braving the cameras on the 8th day of trial, Vanessa Bryant stayed composed entering the courthouse. But today, after taking the stand for the first time, Kobe Bryant's widow broke down when asked about the circulation of crash site photos showing the charred remains of her husband and their 13-year-old daughter, Gigi. I felt blindsided, devastated, hurt, and betrayed, said Bryant. Fighting through tears, she continued. I live in fear every day of seeing on social media and having these images pop up.
One copter down with medium brush.
Bryant and another family are suing Los Angeles County after first responders took or shared photos of the 2020 crash site for personal use. Circulated on cell phones, testimony showed the pictures were shared at bars and even a banquet by firefighters and sheriff's deputies. I trusted them. I trusted them not to do these things, said a sobbing Bryant, saying after the photo leak, I have two choices, to try and live my life or end it.
We love and miss you, Boo Boo and Gigi.
Just days after this tearful memorial where Bryant spoke of her loss, the LA sheriff said he ordered deputies to delete photos taken at the Calabasas hillside.
With the trial moving at a fast pace, this case could wrap up in the next couple of days. Tom?
Okay, Miguel, we thank you for that. Still ahead tonight, the desperate search for the 16-year-old now missing for 2 weeks. Kylie Rodney, last seen leaving a party at a campground, why authorities are now scaling back their search, and a group of amateur sleuths are stepping in. Plus, the latest twist in the long saga of notorious gangster Whitey Bulger, the 3 men just charged with his murder. And train versus SUV, the scary moment at a Miami intersection, what the driver of that car did moments before the crash. Top story just getting started on this Friday night.
Welcome back to Today. We got a lot to.
Looks like those electric cars work real good on those railroad tracks.
It's coming, but when it does, you take it.
The indictment of a former president, or perhaps candidate for president, would arguably tear the country apart. Is that your concern? Can you update us on the status of negotiations?
What do you love about fatherhood?
The chaos, the learning. Is climate change one of your top priorities?
What's your message to girls who want to?
Okay, that's all the liberal bullshit we don't want to hear. Let's go see what Wolf and the guys are up to here. Oh, it's busy over in the chat.
Why don't you just get a soldering iron and just shove it on up there?
It's not just your life, though. It's little baby number 5's life.
All right, give me a second. It's a slow buffer on this channel here.
I think we just turned a blind eye. And
This bitch here growing strawberries out of ass.
When you told them after everything that had already happened, you're having child number 5.
Oh, that's going to be a funny comment. Oh, we're going to miss it.
There were a few people who were like, why are you doing this? Why would you do that? Why would you do it to the baby? And why would you do it to your family? Which at first was hard to hear because they were people who knew us, and we thought, why would you say that to us?
At some point, you just get a soldering iron and just shove it on up there.
It's not just your life, though. It's little baby number 5's life.
Yeah, but we were always knew that he was coming into a loving home.
Oh yes, Rickson.
Oh, come on, man. Slow your stream down, bro.
You could to help him. Did you see where they were coming from?
I do now.
You didn't.
I think defeated's an understatement.
No, because
cop presence in St. Paul. That's all it said.
Thought, surely this won't happen.
Looks like maybe a vehicle abandoned hit the tree.
It did. On the 19th of May 2014, little Fletcher Densley came into the world. Tragically, 3 weeks later, he was
That man's face is not one of I'm in a happy home. This is I'm with this crazy bitch and I want her to take everything I own.
diagnosed with Nissen-Aldrich syndrome. They'd rolled the dice and lost.
I guess it was heartbreaking. It was. I felt for Fletcher, like he's going to go through we know what he's going to go through, and I guess I did have.
Come on, you piece of shit. Fuck YouTube, man. YouTube sucks.
I had a little bit of guilt of.
Do you think she has some form of like, is it Munchausen I'm thinking of? Hold on. Disorder.
Autism.
Parents. Parents need to know. Nah, parents, oh my god, the disorder, blah, 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 blah. Maybe it's Munchausen by proxy? Yeah, there it is, Thomas. Yeah, Munchausen by proxy. So I wonder if she has that. You know what I mean? Like, she wants the sick kid. Yeah, I actually paused this at a perfect thing of, you know, what this crazy bitch is thinking. Like, look at that face. Glory to you and your baby's dead. Oh, they got a guy arrested right there. That must have been the guy that hit the thing. Like, St. Paul again is there. Some cops out there. They were looking for somebody.
He never wears a jacket, right?
Like, there's the audio on too.
He never wears a jacket, right?
So the problem with the cop stalkers, we're not going to talk about the hell happened. It looks like the guy was fleeing from the police and hit a tree. That's what it is.
No surprise. He's not Anglo-Saxon.
Baron Munchausen was a fun movie. Oh.
Did this to him. It was a bit of a reality of what did we do? But, you know, at the same time,
You think she cuts him when he's
he's
sleeping?
a little baby. So it kind of gets us through because we love children.
This time the odds were well and truly against them. No match was found between Fletcher and his siblings, so he was put on an international register to find a random bone marrow donor.
Hey, there you
The
are.
fucking mother should be put on an international registry.
I see you in the video. I'm trying to call you.
Still, no match could be found.
Try again.
It was effectively
Here, let me unmute you.
time, wasn't it? Because time's not on your side. Treacher syndrome.
It was taken out of our hands at that point.
Now you're unmuted.
They keep saying that a lot, don't they? It was taken out of our hands. Oh, this was...
I can hear you. If you're there. There, I'll just call you.
At all costs. All those kids? I don't know. See if they talk about what's going on in one.
So right before they're looking in that car.
Yeah, no sit
tell us
rep
what
tonight.
happened?
Just screwing around trying to run a live stream. Put some trippy algorithms out there trying to attract
That's all.
some people
That's all I
to the
wanted
channel.
to show about Save Your Children. Got the point across.
Yeah, you sound tired. What are you doing tomorrow? Cool.
Oh, probably a lot, Bio. Probably thousands upon thousands, plus the screenings,
Cool.
having the kids.
I'll throw down sit rep tomorrow evening then.
I don't
Yeah,
know, but
I'm
it
gonna
looks
have
like I
that
hit
peel
a
box
tree.
checked every day.
There's all the airbags at a point.
So
He could have got a vasectomy too. There's all kinds
cool.
of stuff to
Yeah, I
do.
haven't
But
even bothered
again,
to do that. I figured I'd
as
wait
she
till it
said,
show up, use the
and
tracking
as he
number if they
said,
fucking
well,
lose
it
it.
wasn't really in the cards. It was out of our hands. And
Postal Service here hasn't been
I
as
bet
bad
you
as
she
out
told
out
him if you
east.
don't-
They're all fucked
if
up.
you don't keep
You
pumping
send
it full of
something
baby
East Coast
better in the
to
hopes of having a kid,
you send it to the West Coast,
You
you
know,
probably wind up on
I'm
a
gonna
road
leave
like
you.
the homeless people. Well, that bill got signed, and people are now starting to dig into what this really means, and even the left and CNN is freaking out over it. Well,
So there is some St. Paul Fire paramedics. I think we got arrested some medics.
Gonna be interesting.
Deploy on that vehicle. I don't think you can see it quite in the background, but. Thanks everybody for joining. We are in St. Paul.
Why didn't you tell us what happened, jack off?
Big step forward for Illinois.
Yeah, you could be driving instead of flying.
Appreciate the donation. Drone.
Now it's a fucking job.
Look, these motherfuckers want drones and all kinds of garbage. I just want a place to live. Multiple trains.
$35 an hour is pretty good money, man. Considering what everything costs right now.
Gross. That's
There
nasty.
you go. Well, we got to get this thing going so we can make even more money on top of it.
So, all you parents out there, would you ever have a savior child to save one of your other kids?
How's the picture, guys?
Well, it's probably because he's a gear as shit and he doesn't know how to fix it.
Well, supposedly by December they're going to have what's called Biden bucks. They're going to test the digital currency.
So St. Paul Fire Department, fire paramedics.
No, China's backed by gold.
Seeing if this guy needed medics.
But their economy, well, Russia's economy's not hurting, but China's fucked. So, a couple of things. One, that plane crash in Watsonville today was pretty interesting. A 2-engine Cessna ran into a single-engine prop Cessna. Basically a jet. Well, it was just on the video. I had it up on there. But
Please, someone find this cop stalker and cut his head up and shit in it.
Watch your show. I'm just kind of doing this in the background also. Probably for another hour, I'm going to make something to eat and get to bed because I got to get up and go do my rook in the morning. But, cool. Right on. And the other thing I was going to mention is the, oh shit, what was I going to say? Something about the.
Sorry, if you'd rather me go film a tree or something, I could always do that.
Oh, fuck, I can't remember. I'm tired. All right, man. I'm going to leave it on in the background for another hour or so, maybe a little longer, and then I'm going to cut it off. I had a few people show up in here, so that's pretty good. Oh, yeah.
I don't really understand why there's a group of human beings out there that don't know how to pronunciate or say things properly.
All right, bye.
And everything they say just sounds like they have a mouthful of marbles.
All right. Dummy.
So we just heard the
All right. What do you mean?
Like, is there no confidence? Do you not know how to speak from your diaphragm?
right, yeah, I'm going to shut it off. I don't have anybody on, I don't think. Fuck. All right, end broadcast.